Hey guys, I hope you're doing all right. Now in today's video, let's talk about the static keyword, static variables, static methods, and static classes. Now static is an important part of object-oriented programming, and although initially it may seem a little confusing, but trust me, once you get a hold of it, it's really powerful and really useful. Okay, so let's begin today's video. I have gone ahead and set up two classes over here, class A and class B. Right now they're empty except these starter methods, right? Apart from them, there's nothing else. So what I'm going to do here is, let's start off with a public void dummy method 1. Okay, and in this public void dummy method 1, I am simply going to print to the console no, not hello world. I'm simply going to print to the console no static keyword. Okay. Now, I want to be able to access this method in my second class. Now, of course, we know the traditional way, that is, create a reference of class A by creating an object, also called a reference variable. Let's just call it class A for now. Now, one extra step that you need to do if you're using Unity, but if you're not using Unity, you don't need to do this step. You can go ahead and just skip it altogether, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to make this public. I'll start explaining all these Unity concepts once we get into Unity, but right now I want to stick to object-oriented programming, so don't worry about those things. And trust me, these concepts work everywhere. So, really quick. Okay, I'm going to save. Well, let's go back. Yes, now what we can do is, the way to access this method is to say class A dot dummy method 1, and we can call it, we can save this, go back, and our console tells us no static keyword, which is exactly what we had written over here, no static keyword. Okay, but this is the traditional way. So where does the static keyword come in? Now you probably noticed that we had to create an object over here. If you are to go with the traditional way, you need to create an object. The problem is, creating an object takes up space. Now, of course, it takes up merely bytes or kilobytes depending on what object it is. But if you have a large project and you have dozens and dozens of objects, the space starts adding up. So we need to take care of that, of course, as responsible programmers, not to clog up our users' storage devices, right? But this is where the concept of static comes in. Not exactly to save space, but you know. The thing about static is, we don't need to create reference variables or objects. How does that work, you ask? The thing is, the only thing that you need to do is type in static before the void, that's before the return type of the method, and after the access modifier. So I have also seen cases where you type static before the access modifier. Either way is fine, but whatever way you choose, just stick to it. Don't keep changing. Okay, now that I've done this, right, public static void dummy method 1 I can go back here and okay, see, there's a red squiggly line. That means Visual Studio is telling us that there's an error. Looking at the tooltip, it says class A.dummy method1 cannot be accessed with an instance reference. Qualify it with a type name instead. Okay. Now what we can do is we don't need this, so I can simply comment it out, and instead of using this object, I'm going to use the class name instead. Class A, remember, that's the name of this class in which this static method is stored. Yes? And class A.dummy method1. No need to create objects. Now what I'm going to do is press Ctrl-Shift-S to save across my entire project. That's a shortcut of Visual Studio. Let's go back. I'll clear this, and once again we'll get into play mode, and voila, no static keyword. Of course, I need to modify the string, but there we go, no static keyword. I hope you're beginning to understand what this is. So yes, no need to create objects, but now the question is, what about static variables? Yes, of course, we can have static variables as well. So we can have, let's say, public static float, dummy variable. Let's just give it a value of 5.5f. Now, obviously, like I showed you, we can access that variable here. We can even set it. So that's the advantage of static variables, right? No need to create objects. But now, what is a static class? Well, glad you asked. If I was to go ahead and write the keyword static in front of this class, see, it obviously cannot inherit. Static class A cannot derive from type monobehavior. Static classes must derive from objects. Okay, we can even get rid of this. No problem at all. I'm going to get rid of this. Let's get rid of these as well. Let's just have a normal method, public void dummy method 3. Okay, what does the tooltip tell us? Cannot declare instance members inside a static class. So what happens if I type the word static in front of this method? The error pops away. In a static class, you can only have static methods and static variables. Also, since this is a static class, if I was to uncomment this, cannot declare a variable of static type class A. So if you have static classes, you cannot create instances of them. That means you can't create objects of static classes. So the more you practice this, the better it will be for you. So I suggest you start using static. Of course, there are some limitations of static, but just try and include it in your project or homework or whatever it is that you're doing with your programming. Before we break off, let's quickly take a look at the documentation. So I have here Microsoft's documentation. I'll link it down below, of course. As you can see, it says 3-minute read. Okay. Use the static modifier to declare a static member which belongs to the type itself rather than to a specific object. Let's see what else they have said. To refer to the static member X, use the fully qualified name mybase C .myStruct.x unless the member is accessible from the same scope. So this is referencing this short example that they've given here. I highly recommend you check out this page. Really cool. They have a fully fledged example over here as well, which you can try running on your own, or just take a look at this, whatever is easy for you. Okay, to summarize all of that, you can use static variables and static methods in other classes without creating objects of their member class. Okay. Second thing, if you have a static class, it cannot derive from other classes, and you can't create an instance of static class. That means if your class is static, you cannot create an object of that class. The third thing, if you have a static class, you can only use it to contain or use it to hold static members. So all your variables and methods that go inside a static class must be static themselves. Okay, so in today's video, we discussed what the static keyword is. We discussed what static variables are. We took a look at static methods, and we took a look at static classes. In our next video, we'll take a look at properties. And no, I don't mean estate, real estate. I mean properties in programming. You'll see in my next video. Really interesting concept. It expands what we have understood about static. Okay, if you haven't understood, you can rewatch the video. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Before you go, make sure to hit the like button if you liked it, and hit the subs button if you loved it. Also, you can hit the bell icon to be notified whenever I make new videos. Check out my Instagram and my Twitter. And if you want to see all of these things in real life projects, follow my devlogs, which I've recently started right here on my own channel. I'll link them in a card above. Okay, thank you for watching once again. Take care. Have a good day/night.